I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your cattle market summary for the week ending November the 22nd. We had cold weather settling in across most all of the nation this week. Started over last weekend and really bitter cold in the first half of the week over most all the country, and especially in the major cattle production areas. And you had spots like in central Oklahoma there where you had a lot of jackknifed, overturned trucks in the ditches there around Oklahoma City. Had some spitting of snow, had a few inches around the Amarillo area and a few inches up in Nebraska and the northern plains and places like that. But this was the second straight week of cold weather, which has hit us a little bit early this year. But pretty much your cattle producers are already acclimated to it and moved right on with their normal business plans this week. So we didn't see a whole lot other than just on Monday morning there of a slowed down trade. Your yearlings sold good this week, sold firm to $5 higher. Your yearling numbers continue to dwindle. Most of your yearlings now are coming out of some kind of a preconditioned facility, but still your commercial feedlots want those hard aged yearlings that'll really perform and try to hit that April board if they can hurry up and get those things finished out. Your calves $3 to $12 higher this week across the entire nation, especially in the southeast where your calves really sold well. The full advance was on your 6-weight calves, especially your light 6-weight calves. Those 6-weight calves are always under a lot of pressure in the fall of the year. We're getting our production so good that we're getting where most all your producers are having big 6-weight calves rather than those light calves. And this late in the fall, you're seeing a lot of those 6-weight calves, and that 6-weight market's kind of been under pressure here the last several weeks. But now we're getting to the point where most of those 6-weight calves are long time weaned, or they've been kicked off at least long enough. And when they get that cold weather like they've had on them here the last couple of weeks, the buyers really start to like those a little better. They're a little bit tougher, and so they really took to those six weights this week, and they were a little bit lower in comparison to your 7-weight yearlings and your 5-weight calves. So they pulled up a little bit, and that's where your $8 to $12 higher was on those 6-weight calves. But you know, we see now that our combines are starting to park. Harvest is kind of getting completed around even in the depth of your corn belt. And so we're going to have a lot more calves fed on the farm this year than we've had in a long time. And those farmers like to feed a big fancy calf like that, even if it's fleshy. They're pretty particular as to quality, and they want those really good cattle. And they may be right in their eyes. A calf that's got some flesh on it's going to keep doing good. It's been doing pretty well so far, so they're going to keep right on. Now your commercial feedlots, they really want those hard yearlings, even if the quality's not there. As they know, and they keep close enough records, they know those yearlings are going to outdo those calves. And they're really moving into these heavier yearlings if they can find them anywhere. And luckily there's some smaller feeders or backgrounders there that have taken some cattle up to a heavier weight and going ahead and marking them at that weight because they don't want to have to try to market them once they get fat. But they're liking those heavy yearlings, have a chance, like I said, to get into that April board. Because we see if we go April to June, we're losing $8 on the fat cattle board there. So they still want to be able to work off that April board. In Mitchell, South Dakota this week had 2 loads of thinner flesh yearlings weighing 988, bring 231. That gives you an idea of how bad they want those big yearlings like that, and they think they can cheapen those up with some outstanding performance. But a lot of heavy cattle being fed right now. The way the industry's working, those guys are still getting a cheap gain even at a kind of an inefficient weight and getting those cattle real heavy. But they're wanting the heavy cattle, wanting to make them weigh, you know, 15, 16, 1700 pounds. Our average carcass size now is over 900 pounds. So it hadn't been that long ago where the packers kept telling them they didn't want those heavy cattle. They had real heavy discounts on those heavy carcasses. But now that we're getting into a tonnage supply problem, they figure, you know, that's what the knife is for. They cut those primals down and fit them in the box if that's what they need to do for shipping. But we're seeing a lot of heavy cattle being fed, and we're getting those weights up there pretty high. But you know, we're seeing a lot of calves still being sold, even though our fall run of calves is starting on a downhill slide. We're still seeing some pretty good runs in the sales. Up in the northern plains, they're still shipping a lot of those calves, and they're coming right off the cow. But like we said, this late in the year, they've had some cold weather on them. A lot of them have had snow on them, and they're just a harder calf. But we're seeing some pretty good runs in the sales, even up in Montana and in South Dakota. We're seeing a lot of calves. A lot of these calves are just the cuts off of those country deals or those video deals at the shipping. And by cuts, I mean those cattle that were odd sized and maybe didn't fit the rest of them, maybe a little bit less desirable, off colored, something like that. That's what a lot of those auction markets are getting right now, is the cuts off those country deals. But in most cases, they're bringing more than the whole string brought whenever they were sold, probably back this summer sometime. So nobody did predict this, the way this feeder cattle market has really rallied. If they said they knew it was going to get this high, they're lying, because nobody ever dreamed it was going to get this high and keep gaining ground right through the fall run like this. But we're seeing those smaller groups at a half a load of drug-free calves at Hub City at Aberdeen, South Dakota, weigh 5'11", bring 313. That's sure more than the whole bigger string would have brought if they'd have sold them or contracted them back this summer. You can watch Hub City every week here on DVAuction. Also, DVAuction and Merck Animal Health is about to unveil Cattle Market Central, which is a real-time automated auction market reporting system, and it's going to be real exciting. There's going to be a lot of ways to customize reports and keep up with markets as they're happening, with just about a 2-minute delay at the longest. But if you've got an auction market, maybe one that's not being reported any other way, and you'd like to be involved with that, we'll set you up for free right here as we're getting started on that on Cattle Market Central. But those guys that are really watching the market, some of you guys that are trading commodities into that, you want to look for a spike this next week in your CME feeder cattle index, because there's not going to be a lot of volume in the sales. A lot of them are going to be shut down for Thanksgiving next week. But then we've got a few places like Green City, Missouri, that's going to have specials. And a lot of them in the northern plains there. And some of those markets are some of the favorites of your farmer feeders. And they're going to be top quality cattle with a good weigh up and good flesh condition and just quality second to none. And we're going to see some big inflated prices in there, and they're not going to have a lot of other prices to water them down, so you want to look for a spike in that. Fat cattle padded its record highs again this week, steady to $2 higher, and just light trading in Kansas and Nebraska, bringing 172 to 174. So that's a new record high for a fat cattle market. Your cows, slaughter cows, they were higher this week, and we knew they would be going into a slow week of sales, so they're not going to get a lot of supply next week of slaughter cows. $2 to $5 higher this week. And now your high dress and your top selling cows are now bringing over $1.20 again. But we won't have a cattle market summary next week due to the slow trading and the holiday there for Thanksgiving. So everybody cook up a ribeye or something for Thanksgiving and give the turkeys a rest. So from our home office here in Maysville, Missouri, we'll talk to you in 2 weeks.